This is what it is, okay? I said empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Welcome to the second episode of the Deployment Dojo. This is a live show, as I just proved, where we introduce software installation techniques using the WiX Toolset and just learn and see where we can go from here. I'm your host, Rob Mensching. My first student is with me, David. David, can you say hi?
Hey there.
All right. How you doing? Weather's been a little bit funky here with the forest fires going around up in the Pacific Northwest. You guys get smoked out at all?
Not too bad. It's a little bit smoky looking in the air, you know, the kind of a red sun look to it. But
yeah, we had my son's game was actually canceled because it was up towards the north border by the Canadian border was where the game was. So it saved us a 2-hour drive, but the game will be rescheduled. And then we got to go see the Sounders win against Austin. So yeah, that was good.
Nice.
All right, let's bring you back to here. Today we're going to refine what we started last week with the grand opening, where we put the whole dojo together and nothing was in place and any of that. And I want to go through that process again. I've go ahead and cleaned the slate again. I have an empty room and we're going to fill it with the tools that we need to get started. The tools being the WiX Toolset. So without further ado, let's go break into our first kata. All right, here we are. Like I said, empty command prompt, everything we need to get going. This should look very familiar, David. This is where we started off last week, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. All right. What do we do? Well, we have .NET installed. .NET is the C# and a lot of the foundation for a lot of the things that Microsoft is building on. And the WiX Toolset builds on top of .NET, being managed code in the build. So we need to get our tools in using .NET into the .NET environment. So the first thing we're going to do is do a .NET tool install. In .NET tool install. All right. And what that will do is, as we discussed yesterday, is it will look up on NuGet.org for the name that I use. I'm going to pick WiX here. And it will find our little project and install it. So I'm going to install this tool set at this version. 4.0.0-preview.0. Now, I want to start here again. I know this is a repeat for all of you that were here with us last time, but I want to get into this nice and easy motion of installing and knowing that you can do this anytime, even though we're not going to do this hopefully very often. But maybe we'll add one twist at the end. We'll see where we go. So this is what I want to refine today, getting the WiX Toolset. All right, so when I do a .NET tool install, we install the, we still have it installed. All right, you know what? Nothing like the demo gods. I'm going to show you. You can then uninstall it by just saying the same thing. Remove. All right, let's try that again. .NET tool install version preview 0. And there we go. Now preview 0, if we look up here, was released back in, is that April, May of 2021. We've fixed tons and tons of bugs since then. So let's go ahead, instead of working with this very old build, let's start with a current build. GitHub, WiX Toolset. If we go to GitHub, this is where we're doing all the development of the WiX Toolset, and primarily in the WiX 4 repository. Now, the nice thing about GitHub is it provides a place where we can publish our development builds, all those builds in between that are just, hey, this is the latest code checked in. We can publish them here in the same way that we could publish them on NuGet. We can publish them here. So this is another private kind of look, or a separate NuGet. I used the word private last episode, which is not the correct word. The correct word is local. This is central to only the WiX toolset, shared only within here. But anybody can get to these things because the WiX toolset is an open source project and open to everybody. When we are done, we will pick a build out of this and publish it over to NuGet with the intent to say, hey, if it's on NuGet, everybody can use this version. When it's here, it's when you want to be on the latest cutting edge. And of course, David, we want to be on the latest cutting edge because that's what we're doing.
Right.
Right. All right. So if I go look at this, last week it was build 509 is what we installed. You'll notice that we've had some work since in the last week that we're now up to 513. And so, you know what? I'm going to install 509 again. All right. So .NET tool, uninstall. Let me uninstall WiX now that I have the old one installed. We'll uninstall it. And now we will install a new one. This preview 1 build and we used 509 last week. I want to pick up 509 again. And if you remember, this is going to fail for us. .NET is attempting to install, but when it looks, it's attempting to go out and look only on NuGet because that's what's available in .NET by default. And it doesn't have it. It doesn't know, hey, I can't find a preview 1 anything out here because we haven't published a preview 1 build. We're getting close, but not yet. All right. So what do we need to do? We need to tell .NET and NuGet, the whole NuGet system, that we want to be able to use this location. Now, I mentioned before, this location is not easy to find, so I have the URL here. This is the URL that we're going to want to add to find all of our packages. This NuGet package, GitHub, WiX Toolset, index.json. .NET doesn't know about it, so let's add it. We're going to teach .NET using the NuGet command. Last week I used NuGet.exe, which requires you to go out and download NuGet.exe, which is free. You can get it from NuGet.org, but this is a better way to do this. And if you didn't watch last week's video, you should, because one of our other collaborators in the dojo, she came along and helped me clean this up. Let me go ahead and get this. So .NET NuGet, what do I want to do? I want to add a source, that URL, and I want to give it a name, and I'll just call it WiX Toolset. It doesn't matter what the name is as long as you remember what it is. All right, so when I hit add, it tells me that it's add that package source. Here's something we didn't do last week that maybe we should add to this Kata. Let's make sure that we've verified that we did that correctly. .NuGet list source. And here, .NET has shown the 3 sources that I have on my machine currently registered. NuGet.org, where we were here. The private location where Visual Studio installs a whole bunch of packages so that you don't have to download them from the internet. That's why they have this. And then the new one that we just added, WiX Toolset, off of GitHub. So we go back and now we attempt to install this build 509 from this version up here. We should be able to install it. Build 509. Now the second problem. And I want to walk through these katas just one step at a time to remind us what the issues were. And if you look up here in the yellow, it's saying your request could not be authenticated by a GitHub package service. GitHub has decided to protect all of their access to the NuGet feeds that they provide off of GitHub behind a password. You have to log in to be able to download from here. I could imagine the reason is they don't want bot farms out there downloading files all over the place and having to drive up their egress costs or whatever. So you have to log in. And the way you do that from a tool is you use a personal access token. The way you do a personal access token is you come into your little personal location in GitHub and you go to your settings. Then from here, you go all the way down to your developer settings on this page. And then you go to personal access tokens. All right, now if you remember last session, I deleted my personal access token because these are intended to be secrets. These are replacements for your password. You can control their lifetime, how long the password is out there, how long the personal access token is available, and what the access token can be used for. So let's go ahead and create a new token. And I wasn't expecting that. I have to do my 2-factor auth. I'm going to pull this off the screen because that I don't trust as much. All right, I'm in. 2-factor auth is a good thing. If you don't have it turned on, you should do so. All right, we get to name our token. I'm just going to call it Dojo. You get to set an expiration by default. I'm going to delete this at the end of the session, so it doesn't matter. And then you get to say, what can this token be used for? All of these different uses all these different features of GitHub. And in our case, we only care about this one right here, the read packages, which allows us to download packages from GitHub registry. And I don't need write, I only need read. Now, one thing I didn't make clear, this access token represents me as a user, and I can use this to read packages on any place on GitHub as myself. So when I use this token, GitHub says, oh, Rob has accessed GitHub, and this personal access token proves that it is him with his name and this password. So this isn't just used for the WiX toolset, it's used for anywhere that I want to get packages off of a GitHub. At this point in time, I'm only inserted in WiX, but I could use it in other repositories and other projects if they had that. I don't think I brought that up last time, did I, David?
No, not really. You just kind of touched on it pretty quick and went over it, but.
All right, so now I have the secret token. If you steal this, you can go pretend to be me for a little bit. Now, I'm going to now .NET, let's see, NuGet, .NET NuGet, and I want to, I can't add, I need to remove it. Remove source WiX toolset, because I'm going to replace what I added before with a new one. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my commands, .NET NuGet, add source, that URL, I gave it that name, and I'm going to add the important parts, which is the user and the password, which is this thing that I can copy and paste. I think I got that command right. So what is this doing? I removed this feed from the from my local store of NuGet feeds, allowed feeds, and I'm adding it now back again with my name and password so I can access the WiX toolset. So now when I go do .NET NuGet tool install WiX version preview 1, it will use this access token to go ahead and do that. And this should just work. So I have now installed WiX previously, as we did last week. And here is now WiX ready to be run. And we can see the version number up here is 509. All right, so we did that in roughly 10 minutes. And that's the kind of thing I want us to be able to do through the katas, is to be able to step through each piece so that we get very comfortable with the idea of doing this. Now, honestly, probably in the future, we won't do this kata 0, is kind of what I call it. The one that gets you started, and maybe we'll do kata 0.5, which is we'll do updates of the builds. But this is enough for us to get started with the next step. Is this good, David?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was struggling a little bit last time with the idea of, having multiple versions and multiple sources, right? And needing to remove them before I moved on.
Yeah.
But yes, this makes sense.
And I don't think I did a great job of explaining that you could see the sources and that you need to remove them. And I honestly haven't tried updating them without removing them first. Did that not work? Like,
I think I think you get an error about adding a source that has the same name, something
exactly.
like that.
So you can't do that. All right. So now with that, I'm going to go back to my personal access tokens, the Dojo, and I'm going to delete this token. Okay. So since I have the WiX toolset installed on my machine now, I don't need to access the feed on GitHub because I have the version I need. And I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing this. Create your tokens, keep them around for a little bit, use them. I take that back. When you're done with the token, go ahead and delete it. Most of the time, you just give it a time span and let them expire on their own. All right. Cool. So now we have the all-important WiX toolset on the machine. All right. All right. Should we start building something?
Let's do it.
All right. Okay. So on to the second kata that I want to do today. All right, to do that, we're going to bring up code, my very favorite code editor here right now. And we have our notes from before, and I want to step back through this one. And this time I want to see if I can do the pattern a little bit better because I kind of got rushed last time. And I'm thinking if I step through it a little slower, it'll go smoother. All right, so we have a package, we have a directory tree, and then we have a feature tree. The directory tree is the structure of where our files get laid out on the computer. And the feature tree are the things that the users can turn on and off when they're installing. you use a component to tie those two pieces together to say this component can be turned on and off. The component then is in a particular directory, and the component then contains things like files and registry keys and things like that. So directory tree, feature tree, and the component is used to tie those two parts together. All right. So, oh, I need to create a new file. New file, please. And we will call it, what did I call this before? We'll call it episode2.wxs, because that's the name of a WiX source file. And we start with the name of what we're working with. One thing I should note here is that I have my Visual Studio Code set to save as soon as I change focus. I find it really easy to switch back and forth. So it's like make an edit, switch to another window to do a build. It automatically takes care of that for me. All right, build episode2.wxs, WiX build. First step, first move, put WiX in. And the first error it tells us is that we need to have the namespace because this is XML. This will indicate that everything in here is all things part of WiX. Great. WiX build. Next thing is we could not find anything to get started with. And now it says package bundle things. And we are building a package, not a bundle, not a patch. We are building a package to install. I'm trying to get just 2 spaces, please. Package. This is the steps that you can do, and I'm hoping that over time the WiX toolset gets better. You can imagine one step. Create file, put WiX in it, add the namespace. Next thing we have to do is telling us that we need to add the manufacturer, the name, and the upgrade code. Oh, and a version. All right? Or rather, the upgrade code is a warning. So recommended, but not required. Let's go ahead and add the manufacturer. The name. And the version. Just using that. And then the upgrade code. And upgrade codes are goods. I asked PowerShell to create me a new good, and it will do so. So I could put that then in here. So now I should have clear the screen and then build. And it built. Has nothing in it, won't install, but we're able to build. Let's add. What do you want to add first, the directory tree or the feature tree? We need to add, that's the next part.
Let's do the directory tree.
All right, directory tree. So here you might be like, all right, so let me give myself a directory and then I give a name. Now the Windows installer, and this is a discoverability challenge that has a bunch of directories built in. So you could just say, hey, I want program files folder, for example. And that is your 32-bit program files folder. But I do have to be able to spell. There we go. And then we'll put a component in it. And then we will put a file in it. And we need to create this thing. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to create this file called episode2.tech. This is episode 2. Great. Now, I have not a very big directory tree, but a directory with a component. I'm just going to build this now. Now, this is a little bit weird. I am installing this file into program files folder. We'll fix that in a minute. All right. All right. So it is no longer define a standard directory for program file folder. Use the standard directory element instead. Now, you might be wondering, why do you have standard directory and directory elements? I think this is actually something you asked me later, David.
Yes.
So this is a change in 4 that I should call out, and I was a little bit of a rush. I was kind of flubbing through my Kata last time. So here we go. The reason we introduced this is because in the XML, in the XSD, by making this standard directory, we can provide the full set of known IDs right here and tell you if you specify standard directory and then you put in something like foo folder, which is not a standard Windows installer directory. Now, when you build, it will say the standard directory ID attribute foo folder is not one of the legal options. And oh look, here are all the options now available to you. The idea being now that we can make this more discoverable, so you can figure out, so you can find at least which one you want out of this big long list of options that the Windows installer provides.
So you have to use one of those folders. Is that accurate?
You don't. You could just let it install to the root of the, the largest drive on the computer, which is what it would do by default.
Okay.
But that's, maybe that's what you want, but usually you want to install the program files folder, or maybe the desktop, or so on and so forth, right? Maybe not the desktop, but but people put things on the desktop all the time. You can think of how many times you see a shortcut show up there. That's how they do it. They specify a standard directory. All right, cool. So we have a directory tree, program files folder. Oh, now let's go ahead and add another directory inside here. And we'll give it name equals, I'll do the same thing. Episode 2. That will be the name of our directory. Cool.
Cool.
All right. So now we run. All I have now is another directory. All right, cool. We found an orphaned component. If this is a package, every component must have at least one parent feature. Well, that's not surprising given to know that we have both a directory tree and a feature tree. And that's what this error is trying to tell us. That we have a package, we need to have a feature tree. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. Because the features are how the user can control what gets installed. In our case, we only have one, which is fine. And now we want to refer to this component. How do I do that? This is a component, that's a component. They're not tied together. To do so, I need to give this guy an ID. And this guy an ID. So, component ref. So I can refer to this component. Because we only want the component defined in one place, because the component has the file in it. We don't want to have to define this component in two places with all of its files and everything. That's just a recipe for disaster, right? Like, You can mix and forget something. This one's easy, but what happens if we change this to episode 3 later, and then this go, nightmare. So you create a component ref that says, hey, in this feature, it gets this component, I can ref, pull it over there. Okay? Notice this Kata went a little differently than it did last time, because this time, I think you said start with the directory tree, and I put the component over there. Last time, I think we put the component over in the feature tree. We could talk about the differences as we get a little more advanced.
Okay.
All right. Blank screen means everything built, and we can look at our outputs here. We have our episode 2 MSI, our episode 2 WiX PDB, which we talked about WiX PDBs a little bit, and we have our cab 1 because by default our MSI gives us a cab. Makes sense? And we can now MSIEXEC swish I episode 2.msi and run it. Now, so this, I got this error on my other monitor. I'll pull it over for you. Installation package could not be opened, verified the package exists, and you can access it. This is a Windows installer behavior. It will not find these kind of relative paths. So, Dojo, episode 2. All right. Give it a full path, and now it will be able to find it. And I have the user account. You can't see that because it locks up the whole screen. And we should now be able to go to Program Files folder. Program Files folder, ~ep2, ep2.txt, and this says this is episode 2. 1, 2, 3. Does that make sense? All good?
Nice.
Yes,
exactly. All good.
And then here's how you can uninstall from the command line, take the same MSI and uninstall. Are you sure you want to uninstall this program? Yes, sorry. I have on another window the prompt to uninstall. There, and notice Explorer automatically kicked us back into the root of program files folder, and we've uninstalled. All right, we had a couple people ask questions here. What's going on with the double quotes in front of all the standard IDs and the warning and valid standard directory? All right, that sounds like something. Let's do that. So, Dojo episode 2. Evaluate the output when standard, the error output when standard directory has invalid ID. And Bob points out that the relative paths are okay, but it's that PowerShell dot style that does not work. So that means that if I do MSIEXEC/I, this one, I should be able to install. And he's correct. Now I'm able to install and uninstall. Excellent. All right. We're making this show short because David has to run off to another prior engagement, but I want to give you 5 minutes, David. 5 minutes in sparring. Here we go.
Oh, great. What do you want to talk about first?
Pick something that you can fit in 5 minutes so we can make sure that we can meet your time frame.
Okay. I did a lot of this, on my own too. Can we talk about the MSIEXEC command a little bit and where that came from? Is that part of the WiX toolset or is that?
This is why you're here, David. No, MSIEXEC is part of, it's part of Windows. I always forget which command it is. This is the Windows installer, the command line version of installer. You can double click an MSI. It'll end up launching MSIEXEC.exe. You can run the command line with or run it and then give it a bunch of command line switches, and that will run the Windows installer. That is the entry point to the Windows installer.
Okay. That's what consumes the MSI and creates stuff out of it.
MSI exec switch ? Small, but there you go. Title is Windows installer, and here are the command line parameters that you can pass to the Windows installer.
Cool.
And there are a lot. And maybe one day we'll go through more of them. Right now, /I is to install, /X is to uninstall.
Gotcha. All right. How about some of the naming conventions for WiX and the you kind of brought up the MSI structure and what the structure of it looks like, but what about inside of WiX? So like you talked about directory, the directory tree is actually standard directory. Is there somewhere I can look for what those actual XML elements are named?
So you're talking about, is there somewhere that these are all documented and what the names are?
Yeah, the package and the directory tree and feature tree.
Yeah, so we have reference documentation and a little bit of getting started documentation on the WiX toolset, so you can kind of learn how to get into these and get going. But it's a documentation. It's like learning a new language. There's a whole bunch of keywords. You get to learn what they all are, and you have to start from there. And without knowing the words, that's a little bit challenging. So then you go try to find some documentation. Believe it or not, you're actually part of the documentation experience now, David, for WiX 4.
Okay.
If that's not a little meta for yourself.
Right.
You are the answer to your question.
Nice.
Do we get him? Is that now? We have 1 minute left.
1 minute. What else do I got for it's just the 1 minute? Well, I mean, I guess I could look too at some of that the component, the idea of a component. Are components just always just files?
Components are very important in the Windows installer. We've just started scratching the surface of them. They are the atomic unit install. Everything in the component gets installed together in the Windows installer, and it gets removed together. So you end up grouping resources, things that end up on the machine together into components. It's another word that they could have used instead of component, because component is such an overused word in software installation. They could have used the word unit. I almost wish they would have done that, right? It's just a unit. It is the unit that gets installed. It is the unit gets uninstalled.
Okay. I guess I'll see more of that as the packages get larger and there's more elements inside of them.
And as things get more complex, we have more decisions to make around components and organization and things like that. It's probably just too simple right now.
Right. Which is good for me. Thank you.
Yes. It's a fine place to start, but it also sometimes is so simple. It raises the question, why? If it can't just be fun.
Right.
All right. I think that's pretty good. It's pretty good. my hope is that we do get these kind of rolling into like 30 minutes. So you don't have to spend a whole like 90, certainly not my 90-minute shows where I'm digging into deep inside the WiX toolset itself. Something more, a little more bite-sized. And I felt a little rushed last time, so we'll see. This was a review, mostly us trying to get the process worked out inside the deployment dojo and get things going and kind of all the technology working. It's getting better. This is fun. I'm glad all of you joined us today. Martin, Bob, Sean, great to see all you guys here. We will be back next week. We'll do this again. We might have a little extra time, and we will be breaking into something different next week. I promise. We will not be doing the same things here, but we will keep getting better. But David will definitely be part of it, and he will bring his questions. Different questions, same sort of thing. Until then, all of you guys have a wonderful week. We will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks.